If you are an entrepreneur and you're just starting out, really listen to yourself. Other people may try to dissuade you, but if you truly feel like it's your calling, it's your gift to share with the world, take the chance, take the leap. It's worth it. Even if it doesn't go exactly as planned, it will be better to have done it and the plan changed to have always wished you had done it.
In today's episode, we're talking with Lindsay Vigue. Lindsay is a photographer, adventurer, forager, conservationist, and arts commissioner. After leaving home at 17 and traveling to and living in places like California, China, Serbia, Macedonia, Italy, and Costa Rica, she set up a photography studio in her hometown of Bristol, Connecticut, in an old clock factory. She spent over a decade cultivating a successful photography business built on word of mouth, photographing weddings, families, headshots, and events. Always a naturalist at heart, Lindsay enjoyed spending time outdoors, hiking, camping, and enjoying all forms of nature. As the COVID pandemic hit, she took the opportunity to spend her time refocusing her photography on the night sky in some of the darkest places imaginable, a wide array of birds and wildlife, and capturing as many sunsets and sunrises as possible. With an eye for the natural beauty around us, Lindsay found joy and solace in capturing all the wonders that the outdoors has to offer. The strong connection she feels to the natural world is only made stronger by her ability to share the beauty she sees with others through her photographs. She's begun to sell prints of her work and has gathered groups for outdoor adventures, including a night sky retreat in Vermont and a sailing trip on the Connecticut shoreline. She is currently working on an immersive exhibit called In Search of Darkness that will debut in 2022. So let's get into it. I'm your host, Liz Landeen, and this is The Outdoor Entrepreneur. All right. Hey, Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so good to be here with you, Liz.
Yes, I'm super excited to have you here. So let's start with some fun stuff first.
Sure.
I follow you on social media, obviously, and you post the most incredible pictures of the outdoors and your travels and all that fun stuff. So I'd love to know what outdoor activities you most enjoy right now. Like, what's kind of your thing right now in the outdoors?
Sure. Definitely one of them is going out and finding birds. I don't know what it is, but those creatures are just incredible to me. So right now I have been documenting a great blue heron family. There's a whole nesting colony right now. So they've got about 16 great blue herons, 8 nests. It's right around the corner from my house. And I'm always the only one back there. No one knows that they're there. And I've been photographing them, carrying sticks. And yesterday I fight, and they love each other and then they fight with each other. And then all of a sudden I'm looking up one day and I see a little tiny creature with this like puff ball of a head. And it's a baby great blue heron. It was awesome. It was beautiful. And I've been also documenting a fox family right now. And I love, of course, foraging, finding mushrooms, plants, making medicines with them, making food with them, and being out under night skies. Those are probably my favorite things right now to do in the outdoors.
They all sound incredible. And I love that as you're talking about these birds, Lindsay, for those that can't see her right now, she's sitting outside so we can hear the birds chirping in the background. It's perfect.
I call them my friends.
Awesome.
When I hear them, I go, "Who are you?" I always am like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah, I love it. Have a little conversation.
Yes, they're my buddies.
That's awesome. So, okay. So let's take it back to the beginning,
Sure.
I'm curious to know kind of when, where, how your interest in the outdoors started. So what was the original driver that kind of sparked your interest in the outdoors?
I would say my grandparents really were the ones that really introduced me to the outdoors, especially my grandfather. And actually where I'm sitting right now, behind me is a trail that my grandfather and I would walk all the time. He'd always call them the deer walks, right? And this is like when I'm little. So he's like, "Okay, we're going to look for deer today." And, we'd look for tracks and he'd be like, "You got to be quiet so they don't hear us." And, every once in a while we'd see a deer. It wasn't very often. But what it did was it sparked my interest in the outdoors and right in my hometown. I mean, I'm in my hometown right now. This is where my studio is. This is where I live. And, it's nice to be able to be in these places where it all kind of began for me. Also, my grandparents were the ones that really sparked my interest in adventure and outdoors. They flew me to Vegas when I was just 9 years old, and we rented a car and we drove out to Arizona. We drove out to Utah. I went to my first national park. I saw my very first night sky being with them. I remember it distinctly. We were driving across the desert and I was sleeping in the back seat, and I opened my eyes and looked up and I could see all these stars. And I was like, I'm only 9 years old. And I'm like, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like this coming from a city. So as a kid, being able to see that and be a part of it, I knew that it stayed with me my whole life.
Yeah, I love that. And mine was very similar as far as going out west when I was younger. And it just was a game changer for me.
Yeah, it changes everything,
Yeah.
your whole perspective, because the landscape is so completely different from what you're used to. And especially with those night skies, I mean, being under a night sky is like, it's this sense of wonder. It's this sense of dreaming. It's a way that people would connect with a part of themselves. It's one thing, I think, to connect with the land, the ground, but it's also another thing to connect with the night skies, all the stories that came from it. Ships sailing by, that was basically the old school GPS, was following star patterns, and the skies would tell you how and where you can sail. There's just something so magical about it. And it's getting increasingly more difficult to see them.
Yeah, it's true. I was just reading a great book on this and I thought of you because they were talking about how night skies are really disappearing most places, and how difficult it is going to be to find a place where you can go and have true dark sky.
Yeah. And I think there's something about living this human existence that is part of it. I feel like that is a way to connect to who we are as humans, that wild spirit, that part of connecting to the universe and what is outside of us, what is outside of this, our everyday tangible lives. There's like this dreamer aspect to it. And if we're missing that, we're missing that sense of connection and how deep we can go in our human experience.
I love that. And I've seen some of your photography of the night skies you've captured, and they're just incredible. They are so
thank you.
Just unique, and they definitely kind of invoke something in you when you look at them. So I definitely want to talk more about night skies with you, because I know you have some exciting stuff coming up with that. But I'd love to hear a little bit about how you first got into photography, or how did you know this was something that you enjoyed doing? So maybe you can talk a little bit with us about your journey into photography.
Sure, yeah. It really started when I was a teenager. And when I was in high school, I was kind of the person that would always take the camera out, when I'd go out with my friends, and I'd be the one taking pictures, and I made photo albums and things like that. So obviously there was just sort of a natural draw to it, and capturing moments and fun, and being able to look back on imagery of having a fun time. And so when I believe I was a junior in high school, I took a black and white photography film class, which I loved, being in a dark room. That was like one of my favorite parts. That's the part that I really miss now, is that like quiet meditative space of being in a dark room and have this one red light, and you'd smell the chemicals, and it would just be this like really beautiful, meditative, interesting experience. But I really enjoyed it. And the teacher that I had, she really helped me see that I had an eye. I actually took this one photograph. It was of my friend's little brother, and he was jumping on a trampoline, and he was only maybe 4 years old. And I have this black and white photo of him jumping on a trampoline. You can imagine this little kid. I mean, he's just having the time of his life, and he's in midair, hands up in the air, hair flying everywhere, this big smile on his face. And I printed, I got it printed in the dark room, and I brought it into class, and she posted it up, and she said, "This is an example of a great photograph." And I think having a teacher recognize something in you that maybe you don't recognize in yourself is huge, right? And I think that helped give me the confidence of maybe I do have an eye, like that I don't just enjoy this, but maybe I can do something with this. And I carry that with me. I think about, always, making sure that when you see a talent in another person or you see that they're really enjoying something, give them feedback, keep positive, let them know that go for it. If you really enjoy this, if this is something you really love, go do it. Take the chance to do it. So, after that, I got my first digital camera when I was 18, and I started photographing everything, everybody, friends, like I would just be photographing everything and everyone. And I really loved it. I really made the decision by the time I was a teenager that that's what I wanted to do.
I love that. And I love just hearing, the power of having someone in your life that can see your skills and your talents and your passions and can help foster that a little bit. It's so important. So let's talk a little bit about what I would call like Lindsay 1.0 versus 2.0 versus 3.0. I don't know how many .0s there are, but kind of the stages of Lindsay as a business and as an entrepreneur and as this seeker of, adventure and student of life that you are, all of that kind of where did you start? Where have you transitioned into?
Sure. It's been a big part of my life ever since I was a little kid. Like I've always kind of had a bit of an adventurous spirit, even though I was a bit shy and introverted, always had an adventurous spirit. But, as I got older and I had made that decision when I was a teenager about really wanting to pursue photography, I knew that the two of them would somehow meld together. And at the time, I really wanted to be a photojournalist. And that's actually how I ended up starting my career. Before really going into working full-time as a photographer, I kind of circumvented it for quite some time. And I did a lot of travels, and I was in Serbia, Macedonia, China, California a couple times, lived on the Jersey Shore for a summer. I was in Italy and Costa Rica, and I was just kind of, I wanted to see what the world had to offer. And I think that I definitely had some fears about really taking the leap into being a photographer. So what happened was I was living in California and was totally broke, sleeping on a friend's couch. And, it was one of those things where I was like, you know what, I have been putting this off for some time. It's time to really make this happen, So I got a job as a lifeguard during the day. So I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning and watch old people swim laps back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for hours to make a paycheck. And then the rest of the day, I would be doing photo shoots and, working on a website and business cards and, just kind of just kicking it off. And I'd moved back in December of 2007, really started my business in January of 2008. And by April of 2008, I had gotten just a small studio space because I was working out of my parents' living room and taking their furniture out and putting my 9-foot backdrop up. And like, I should probably get my own studio space. And even then, I had wanted to work in, doing things with music, musicians, go on tour, things like that. And I did those things. I mean, went on a Midwest tour with an all-female punk band from New York all the way out to Iowa City. And it was a blast, photographing that. And I did all kinds of different portrait work and worked with politicians, a lot of them from all over New England and things like that. But it really didn't change until a little later. I always loved the outdoors, being in the forest, being outdoors. That was my solace. That was when I ever felt overwhelmed. That was my place to just feel grounded. And I was like, how can I meld my work and this kind of work in the natural world together? So one of the things was, as I was talking earlier, I love night skies. So how can I share this with other people? So I held a retreat at a farm in Vermont in August of 2019, which was awesome. We had 25 people. It was 3 nights. And by day, we would do meditations, Tai Chi, watercolors, hiking, being by the pond. And at night, I would lead night hikes up to the ridge where we can actually see night skies. And I did some teaching of photography, of how to best photograph night skies. And it was unbelievable. And I realized that sharing these kinds of things is extremely important. You love something and you want people to love it and see how much it can do. Sharing it is the best thing.
I love that. And I love the process on okay, how did you make it happen? Right. I love making things happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it sounds like it was very intentional. It wasn't necessarily, towards the end, it started to become a little bit more intentional as far as I want to move in this direction or I'm not feeling called to do these certain things anymore or focus on this part of photography. And I wanted to focus a little bit more on other areas. So I love that you kind of got some clarity around that as things
definitely
changed and allowed yourself to go in that direction.
Yeah. And, you really, I think, hit the right word, intentional. It's sort of this intentional living. It's this life of design, by design of what do you value? What's most important? And what do you feel called to do? What do you want to share? What's your gift? And I just felt like I knew how healing the natural world is. I know how it is so important. Conservation is important, all those things. And I was like, and especially I would say with COVID and really having sort of time off from my traditional work is when I really sort of dove in a deeper way. And it's been, it really changed a lot. But that intentional living is I really value free time to be able to live a beautiful existence. And I don't, there is a big hustle culture in the entrepreneur world. And I think it's important to be intentional with how you do your work, but also what feels right. I was definitely a part of this big time hustle culture. I worked a lot and I didn't always give myself the time to really connect with nature. But it's just living this life by design is huge, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. But what do you value? What's most important? How do you keep that balance of not working so much that you aren't able to really share your gifts with the world?
Yeah. And I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit, just because I've heard you talk about your kind of situation previously with debt and then paying it all off and being very intentional with that and kind of creating this life for yourself. And that was part of it, was not having debt. And I think I'd love for you to just talk about that a little bit, because it does affect you. It does affect us if we have a large amount of debt and we're becoming entrepreneurs or we're on this entrepreneurial journey. And now we're feeling oh my gosh, we have to hustle and grind all the time and make, all this money, whether that's to pay off debt or we just feel like that's the life, that's the lifestyle we have or whatever it is. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I just kind of, you go into the world and often you don't necessarily know how to manage money, right? So maybe some people grew up knowing how to do that. I did not. It started when I was in college. I started accruing debt and I couldn't, it was keeping me up at night. It just was not good for my well-being to feel oh my gosh, where's the money coming in so I can pay this credit card and try to pay it off quickly so I don't have all this interest. And it became, by the time I was really started my own business, I had probably, $40,000 in debt. And I was in my early 20s, I'm what do I do with all of this? I bought a brand new car and had credit card debt, student loan debt, normal stuff, right? Normal. And it came to a point where I just felt it was keeping me up at night. I was really overwhelmed by it. And it felt like kind of being a prisoner, right? You owe money to people all the time. And so it was like, well, if I owe people money, then I need to work harder and I need to make sure that, whatever. So once I was able, I finally just got on a path where I was like, I'm making an intentional choice to be completely debt free. And that way I can also save and invest for my future and not have to worry about just paying out all of my money all the time. So it took me some time, but it wasn't until, so I think it was 2000, maybe 15, where I finally, made that last car payment. I had paid off all the credit cards. I had paid off all of the student loans. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am free. So what happens is like when you don't have all this debt and you're just paying regular bills, you don't have to work as hard to try to pay all these bills. And it also opens up this free time to be able to travel, adventure, go climb a mountain on a Tuesday afternoon if you want to. That's the beauty of also being an entrepreneur, is that you make your schedule. You get to be extremely intentional. You don't have a 9 to 5. Right? You don't have to respond to a boss who says you have to be here at this time from this time, and then the rest of your day is yours. And by the rest, and then by the time you get out of work, you're exhausted and don't have much daylight left and whatever. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. So, but if you don't have all of this, this debt holding you down, you have so much more freedom and so much more peace of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome lesson learned. And kind of along that, I'd love to hear from you on, do you have a piece of advice or some guidance on like, what do you wish you had known when you first started out? Like what was a big, kind of lesson you wish you had known back in the day from a business standpoint?
Yeah, I think to stay true to yourself and to really listen to yourself and to share the gifts that you feel like you can offer to the world. Because I am a true believer that everyone does have unique gifts to share. I don't think there's always just some random purpose that we're here. And, I think a lot of times you feel obliged, especially when you're younger, to follow what your parents think is best for you, what society says is best for you. Like my parents, I know they did it out of love and somewhat fear, but they were nervous that I'd always be a starving artist as a photographer. They wanted me to be a teacher. And that's what sort of held me back. You want to make your parents proud, or you feel like you need to fit in into society. So, you buy a new car when you're in your early 20s and really don't have the money for it, things like that. When really it's like, listen to yourself, and I don't regret anything because my journey has been beautiful and unique unto itself. But if you are an entrepreneur and you're just starting out, really listen to yourself. Other people may try to dissuade you, but if you truly feel like it's your calling, it's your gift to share it with the world, take the chance, take the leap. It's worth it. Even if it doesn't go exactly as planned, it will be better to have done it and the plan changed to have always wished you had done it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, your story is perfect in that, where you started looks so different than where you are now in many ways. And you've been able to really intentionally create this life for yourself that does incorporate the bits and pieces of things that you truly enjoy doing, like being outside and being in nature and spending time traveling and capturing the night sky and all. Like, you are in nature a lot, doing what you're doing, but you could just as easily be in a studio all day, which is kind of where it started, I think, on many levels. So I love that you found a way to kind of transition and bring together your passion for photography with the outdoors. And it's a great story. So kind of going along those lines, I would love to know, my kind of phrase, I love saying slay. So what does slaying at life, business, whatever, what does it look like for you? And that could be right now. Maybe you feel like you're slaying it right now and this is it. This is what you've wanted and you've worked for. Or maybe it's 5.0, right? Lindsay 5.0. This is down the road. This is ideally where you would really like to be in your life or your business. This is the life you'd like to create. So would love to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. It's funny, actually, I was thinking about this yesterday. I spend a lot of time trying to be very intentional of how am I living? How does it feel? How do I feel on a daily basis? Am I where I intended to go? How do you know when you're like sort of in it? So I was driving yesterday and I was thinking about this and I was like, I think I'm in it right now. I think I'm in it and it'll change, right? Like the intentions change over time. We evolve and as humans, but I think this is what I wanted. I used to do like 30 weddings a year. I would be shooting all the time and really overworking myself and not giving myself the space to really be in nature and to be outdoors as much as I wanted. And it's like right now I've scaled back doing not as many weddings, not as many studio shoots. And instead, I've found ways to be able to spend more time outdoors and start showing my work, selling my prints, doing gallery shows. And what's beautiful is every day is different. Every day I'm able to wake up and the day looks different. Some days I wake up and I spend my days foraging for mushrooms and making tinctures and medicines and things like that. And then I'll be in my studio doing headshots for somebody. And then the next day I will be on a boat somewhere sailing and taking pictures of a sunrise or a sunset or a moonrise, or it's all right, the new moon is coming. So maybe my wife and I go camping and I'm like, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful moment. And I know that I will continue to evolve. But right now I've created a good balance between working with humans and the natural world.
That's awesome. I love that. So I want to get back to your night sky work because
Sure.
just as we're starting to wrap up, I have a few more questions. But before we wrap up, I would love for you to share with people a little bit about your night sky work, especially around maybe upcoming opportunities that you have, or if you're doing an exhibit. What do you have going on with your night sky work?
So originally, I was supposed to have an exhibit open in the fall of 2020. And obviously with COVID, that was pushed out because I really couldn't do the travel work to get my night sky photos. So what I'm doing right now is I'm working on gathering all these night sky images by going to finding these darkest skies. And the name of the show is In Search of Darkness, which makes sense because I am, in fact, searching out and seeking out these areas that really still are available to see the Milky Way with your naked eye. That show, In Search of Darkness, is going to open in fall of 2022. So right now I am working on kind of gathering those images. So I just got back from camping on Assateague Island, which is in Maryland. And they have beautiful night skies there. And then, I was out in Utah just a few weeks ago. We rented a camper van, and that's another place where the dark skies are. And the show itself, I really want it to be kind of this immersive, meditative experience. So I want people to walk into the space. I'm also recording. I have a sound recorder, so I'm recording night sounds, whether it's coyotes or crickets or tree frogs, things like that. So I want that to be part of the experience of the exhibit. So the prints will be about 6 feet tall. So they'll be big prints. And when people walk in, they will hear the sounds of night sky. They can sit on wooden stumps, tree stumps, rather than just traditional benches. There will be projections of stars. I really want people to walk in and almost feel that essence of walking out under a night sky and what that magic is. And again, just kind of going back to sharing that with people. And if people can find a way to connect with that, what I hope is that they want to protect those night skies as well. If you feel a connection to something, you often in turn want to protect it.
A great point. And I will definitely get to your exhibit. It sounds amazing.
Thank you.
I love this.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, this immersive experience.
Yeah.
And so much thought is going into it with, like you said, tree stumps to sit on and all of that. So
yeah,
keep
I'm
us
excited.
posted on that. We will definitely put in the show notes how to find you and all that good stuff. We'll keep everyone updated. So as we close out, as you know, I'm a strategy and action coach. So I created this podcast not just to talk about dreams and all of that. I really want to be able to show people that they can combine their income producing job with their love for the outdoors, and to see that it's possible and that everyday people just like you, me, anybody can do it. But ultimately, I really want to inspire people to take massive action towards their own dreams and goals. So I'd love to close out with an outdoor action challenge. So maybe tell us what's one thing you want people to get out there and do.
Okay. Am I allowed two?
Sure.
Because another one just came to me. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, great. I've got two different things. Okay. So one of them, we've talked a lot about sort of, being intentional. And so what I'd love someone to do is to find a beautiful place that they like to be in outdoors, whether it's by the beach or it's in the forest or it's by a lake or a river, it doesn't matter. Them to find their favorite place and sit with a notebook and write exactly how they want their lives to, or their business to feel and to look, and write it in current terms as if it's happening in that moment. So, they are living the life of their dreams. They have plenty of creative opportunities coming in, and they have plenty of income. They're taking trips, whatever it is, write it in the present moment. So they can really be intentional and really look at the words and feel it as they're writing it. That's one thing. And also do that outdoors. Second thing is, if someone has never seen a real night sky where they can see the Milky Way with their naked eye, the challenge is to go to a light pollution map online, find one of the darkest spaces around where you live, go during a new moon, and just sit out under the stars and dream. That's my challenge. Those are my challenges.
Those are your challenges. All right. So find a dark sky area, get outside and spend some time there. And then also do some real kind of intention setting in an outdoor space, in a beautiful space that really inspires you, and write out what your life, whether that's includes your business, possibly, what it looks like, what it feels like, and do that in the present moment. Perfect. Those are awesome suggestions. So that's everybody's action challenge. Awesome. And it's a perfect place to close out. We'll put all the ways our listeners can learn more about you and your work in the show notes, including your night sky exhibit. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Lindsay. And congratulations to you on becoming an outdoor entrepreneur and living life on your terms. It's been an absolute blast talking with you.
Thanks, Liz. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. My goal as a business strategy and action coach, and why I ultimately created this podcast, is to inspire you to take massive action towards your own dreams and goals. So if you're enjoying this podcast and you find the content valuable, like, subscribe, or follow me wherever you get your podcasts. And I always love hearing from my listeners, so please leave a review. And until next time, be sure to live life on your terms. And if you're not, make a plan and make it happen, my friend. Adventure awaits. Thanks for listening.